All right, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the MFBA Hangouts. So pretty excited with this one. As always, I'm here with my partner in crime with MFBA, Mike Fisher. Pretty excited for our guest today. Got Andrew Paul on today, so we'll go ahead and tell us his story. And again, I don't want to speak for you here, Andrew, but I know we're going to be talking about everything from just your story and how you've been able to take your background and translate it to the mortgage business, and frankly, your message for us last night, which was "Don't be a pussy," and just want to hear more about that. Fish, anything to add here to the intro before we get started?
No, man, you covered it. I just want to shut up and let them talk. That's all I got.
Right. Corey is joining us as well. Corey, anything to say here before we get started?
No, just good morning, and don't mind the concert poster behind me.
Nice. Professional office you are working from today. So with that, Andrew, let's go ahead and turn it over to you, man. Tell us all about you, please.
Well, it's not super exciting, but there's a few things I can share that hopefully will be useful to you and other people who are listening to this now or later or whenever they're watching it. I know people are always interested in my background as a Navy SEAL. I mean, it's intriguing and I get it. But after a while, after you've been in the SEAL teams, it's exciting, but it's just a job. It's just something that you start to do. So you start to lose the perspective of how people don't really know exactly what you do, and you can start to kind of take it for granted. But I recognize now more and more that I've been out of the SEAL teams, talking to other people, how intrigued people are, and so I've kind of begun to open up a little bit more about that background, although it tends to be more of a secretive community. We really preach being a quiet professional, and so a lot of times, it's hard to get guys talking about their experience in the SEAL teams. I've over the years, you could say, justified it or found a way to wrap my head around opening up and sharing my experiences in the SEAL teams to others within a certain context. And in particular, my last deployment to Iraq in 2006 was filled with a lot of combat, which was great, and it's everything that every SEAL always wants to do, which is to deploy and get wrapped up with the enemy and bring the fight, and that's what we got to do. And unfortunately, we lost a few guys. A lot of guys were injured, and so two of my friends from my task unit were killed. Mark Lee from my sister platoon and Michael Mansour from my platoon. Michael Mansour got the Medal of Honor. He jumped on a grenade and saved two other guys in my platoon. In fact, recently they just renamed a ship after him. They're commissioned a new Zumwalt class destroyer, and so it's back in Bath Iron Works in Maine. See the it's not the commissioning, more like the christening. But anyway, what I've come to realize is that, like, Michael Mansour's legacy, Medal of Honor recipient, a guy who paid the ultimate price and really embodies the idea of heroism and patriotism here in our country. I've really come to understand that if I can share his story, if I can share the commitment and the sacrifice, but not just for what Michael did, but also for just other service members, and in that context, if that helps inspire other people, then great. I'm all for it. I'm not going to keep that a secret. I'm going to share it. So that's the context in which I've become more comfortable sharing my experiences in the SEAL teams. My story, just in short, sure, became a Navy SEAL, although you can't really see it in this video. You wouldn't think I was a SEAL if you looked at me. If I walked in the room, I'm the last guy you'd pick out of the crowd to say that guy's a Navy SEAL. I'm 5'7", 155 pounds. And I try to be as unassuming as I can. There are a lot of big guys in the SEAL teams, but there's also a lot of guys that are kind of my size and stature. And so I guess kind of lesson number one is don't judge a book by its cover. And something I loved hearing I've come to love, and I've taught it to my two boys. That's what my dad always told me. It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. I guess that's probably good lesson number one. Is it's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. And it doesn't matter kind of who you think may be the bigger guy or who may have the advantage. It matters what's inside you. It's what's in your heart. And you can overcome incredible challenges. In fact, I mean, I was told by many people, many well-intentioned people throughout my life, that I'd never be a Navy SEAL. And by the way, that was advice and so-called encouragement from people who were not Navy SEALs. So, in this world, you'll be told all kinds of things, advice, encouragement, or whatever, but, be careful about who you're getting that advice from. If somebody's giving you financial advice, take a look around. I mean, are they successful financially speaking? If not, maybe they're not the person to be taking financial advice from. If someone's a life coach, I mean, take a look at their life. I mean, do you like their life? I mean, are they successful in ways that you want to become successful? And if not, maybe they shouldn't be your life coach. And I mean, I'm kind of, be as respectful as I can here, but I mean, I was in this networking group, and there was a woman in this group who was a life coach, and I mean, from what I could tell, I mean, there was nothing successful about this woman. She was, I mean, for one thing, she was out of shape. She didn't appear to have a tremendous amount of success economically speaking. I didn't get to know her well enough to know what her home or family life was like. But my first impression was that this person was a life coach. I was not going to be taking advice from this person. And all that to say, people will give you advice, but consider the source. So anyway, I told my whole life I wouldn't be a SEAL. I ended up going to ROTC. I was at Vanderbilt University, and graduated and commissioned in the Navy in 2001. Went to BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition or SEAL training. Made it through training, became a SEAL. And then, like I said, fortunately, had an opportunity to make a couple deployments where, at a time when our country was at war, and so I had an opportunity to ply my trade. And there's plenty of times in our history and in the SEAL teams as well, or in the Cold War, where these guys did all the training, they did all the workups, and never got to go to war. And I say got to go to war because, I mean, from a warrior's perspective, I mean, that's what you want to do. Not because I'm a warmonger or I want to see war happen. That's be the last thing. But you prepare for that, and you want to be used for that. You want to, all those things that you prepare for. You want to bring those skills, those talents, those preparations to bear for the purpose that they're meant to be. And in my case, protecting our country, fighting for my brothers on my left and my right, and our way of life here in this country. So. I had 2 kids born on back-to-back deployments, and wasn't there for either of them, and began to take a bit of a toll on my family life, and was basically slated to go right out the door with another platoon right after my last deployment, and I just had to make a tough choice. So I got out of the SEAL teams to really strike out. That has more meaning than one. Strike out. In the mortgage business, but really more to be home with my kids and family. And it was a tough call. I mean, I'd wanted to be a SEAL like my whole life, and so to give that up was hard, and I felt really torn. And looking back on it, this is going on 9 years ago now, and time's just ticking by. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I mean, the opportunity that I've had over the last 9 years to raise my 2 boys, to influence them to become the young men that they're becoming. They're 9 and 11 now. To just teach them to be men of honor and conviction, to have a spine and a backbone and to stand for something. I wouldn't trade that for anything. But my transition was very difficult. And that's the part that sometimes I actually like talking about the most, because I think it has some of the best application for helping other people out who are going through hard times. So got off active duty in February of 2007 and got right into the mortgage business. So tell me how you go from being a SEAL to getting into the mortgage business, which are 2 obviously completely different things. I go from jumping out of planes, scuba diving, shooting all the cool guns and blowing stuff up, and just a dream job really, to doing mortgages. 30-year fixed mortgages. Wah, wah. I mean, how do you get excited about that? No offense to all of you guys on the call, but I mean, how do you get excited about doing mortgages? it's kind of hard, right? I mean, it's kind of mind-numbing. It's the same crap over and over again. I mean, at this point, I mean, I don't have to tell you. You guys have probably been in the business longer than I have, and probably do more business than I do. But how do you get excited about that? You get on the phone with the borrower, starts telling you their story, and you already know the answer. I mean, how many credit reports, how many tax returns have you looked at? I mean, you can look at somebody's financial situation in a matter of minutes. You know where they are financially, right? And they've got a story for you. You already know the answer, right? So how do you stay excited and engaged with something that seems very repetitive and after a while pretty boring? Well, I had to basically find a purpose and passion in that work, and I had to do that at the same time with transitioning from the Navy and the SEAL teams to an entirely new line of work, which could be exciting on the one hand, but like a lot of guys in the 2000s, I acquired a few houses that I really couldn't afford from some unscrupulous broker who put me in option arm loans on stated income for houses I frankly couldn't afford. And so I found myself without a steady 2-week paycheck. I found myself, struggling to, on the commission line of work now, building business, building relationships, didn't know where my next deal was coming from. Couple of houses, couldn't really afford the payments. A marriage that was on the rocks. So basically I lost my house, lost my other house, got divorced. I mean, had all the makings for a good country music song, except my dog didn't die. Well, that's not true, actually. We did have to put a dog down, too. Damn, I thought I avoided the country music song. But it was rough. I all but filed bankruptcy. I fought that tooth and nail and didn't. Just about as far as I got. I mean, I settled debt, I wrote stuff off and paid off a ton. But you can imagine, I mean, I got into the mortgage business, a new line of work, without a lead, without a contact, without a single bit of experience, and no one to train me. And right when the business basically, went like that, right? So February 2007, late 07, 08, when it really took. I don't know, how long have you guys been in the business? I mean, for some context here.
Corey?
You're muted, buddy.
Yeah, I think TJ. Yeah, for me, 2004. So I had a couple good years. I thought it was cool, and then all of a sudden, similar experience to you. But I at least had some skills to make it through that time. But yeah, it was a rough time for all of us, that's for sure. All right, where's Corey?
Yeah, Corey, I don't have you muted, man. It's on you.
Yeah.
Oh, did you guys not hear me at all on that one? Sorry.
No.
I've been in since 2002, got out for about a year and a half, just before things went south. Some of us kind of, I don't want to say figured it out, but we were in subprime for a while, and, we started realizing what was going on, and, at that point, companies started talking about selling, et cetera. So, yeah, I got out for about a year and a half, but I've been in since 2002.
See, for me, I think I joined in 2003 approximately, after 10 years in corporate banking, and came into this business, started making more money than I ever made in the subprime days. Spent it just as fast as I could, just as fast as I was making it. So similar story, man. I mean, other than I was corporate banking and you were Navy SEAL. So other than that, it's a very similar story.
Very similar.
And somehow struggled through. Somehow struggled through those lean years and kind of managed to stick it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, those were hard times for everybody, and just for different reasons. But my experience was a little bit different because of the background, and didn't have any previous experience to rely on. It's funny. So when I got into the first office that I got into, the very first deal that I had was, first several deals were guys in my previous platoon, all looking to buy houses. So I did have a nice advantage there, just from guys who were coming back from deployment looking to buy. But I mean, these guys were like fully qualifying borrowers, and so I walk in with these clients and these first couple of loans, and all the guys in that office wanted to do was put these guys in option arm loans, stated income for stuff that was probably way over their head. I didn't have any context, didn't know any better. Put the soda down. I'm just kidding.
It's not soda.
All right.
It's not soda.
All right.
It's a Monster Energy drink.
Oh, it's just as good.
But sugar-free.
Okay, good deal. I'm just messing with you. More on that later. So the first deal I had, I had an account executive from SunTrust, and she helped me put these first couple of deals together. She's like, well, you got to run these things through DU, and I was like, what's DU? Because I didn't know what anything was, and she goes, well, go to your processor, it'll help you. I go into the processor's office. I'm like, okay, well, I got to run this through. She said, I got to do DU, and the processor said, what's DU? And so it just gives you an idea of kind of where the industry mindset was. And so you guys probably remember, right? I mean, it was stated, nobody was doing DU qualifying. I mean, these guys were all stated income crap loans, and that was the time, I guess, but bottom line is that nobody in that office was going to train me to do anything. So, I was in the office at 6 in the morning, and I literally was pulling up Fannie Mae guidelines and reading them. I was reading the guideline books and reading how to calculate income. Nobody trained me. I don't know if Zinix was around then, but didn't have that then, or anybody who knew anything about it. So I just had to figure it out, and I think that's kind of an important point. Maybe I don't know if I've always been geared this way, but you certainly have to be geared this way to make it in the SEAL teams, and that is figure it out. I mean, you can't rely on anybody else. I mean, you can rely on other people as a resource to get some mentorship or some ask questions or to reach people who have gone before you. But you have to have a mental mindset of you are going to figure it out one way or another. And look, I mean, if you've made it in the mortgage business, I mean, not to insult you, but I mean, if you've made it, I mean, really, you've probably learned to figure it out, right? I mean, you get a deal, you got a challenging situation, and you have to become a problem solver, right? You put your cap on and you figure it out. But sometimes it's one thing to do that in the context of solving a jigsaw puzzle or a person's loan. It's another to do that when your life and livelihood are on the line. That's just a mindset thing. I was going to figure it out one way or another, but doesn't mean that I wasn't going to have hard times. And I had really hard times, as I said earlier. Lost the houses, going through the divorce, and so I distinctly remember. This is an experience that is seared in my brain when going through the divorce, the house I was living at the time. So my wife. I could say my wife took all the furniture. I let her have the furniture, whatever. I don't mean to villainize my ex-wife here at all. We actually get along really well. But, I mean, whether she took it or I gave it, whatever. There was no furniture left in the house except for a couch and a TV. And, I was 50-50 custody, so I'm working my tail off 16 hours a day. The days I don't have my kids, the days I do have them, I'm playing Mr. Mom, racing, working as hard as I can, then racing, picking them up from daycare, bringing them home, feeding them, bathing them, getting them ready for bed. Just kind of shout out to all the single moms and single dads out there. That's hard work, man. That's really hard. And meanwhile, trying to build a business, trying to learn the business, trying to build new business, trying to do a great job for the agents I was building relationships with and the clients so that I could build referral business on top of that. And I just distinctly remember when I had this client who was a pain in the ass. And I hate this piece of shit client to this day and love him at the same time. Hate him because he's a fucking piece of shit. And love him because he's such a distinct example in my mind of exactly the person who I never want to work with again, who I will never work with again, and who drives me to be so successful economically that I don't have to work with a jackass like that ever again if I don't want to. build your business and put yourself in a position where you have that kind of luxury to choose. To when that guy comes across, you can smell him when he walks in the building, and you're like, you know, you and I, not really a good fit for one another. Call that guy down the street from Wells Fargo. He'll probably take great care of you. I got a great somebody at Chase. So anyway, I distinctly remember this guy. So I had a challenging situation on his loan, and I was working super late one night on, next thing you know, he wanted options for a 10-year fixed, a 15-year, a 20-year, or a 30-year, paying points, not paying points. If I pay down an extra 20 grand on the balance, 75 LTV, 80, I mean, bro, it's like 16 freaking scenarios, right? But I didn't have a whole lot of other business going on, so I mean, I kind of had to do it, and how to structure his deal to get him the best deal. So I figured all this stuff out, presented all these options for him, send this over, and then he goes, oh, because first Wells Fargo couldn't do his loan. I mean, I don't know why they couldn't. They're just stupid. That's what you get from Wells Fargo and Chase. But I don't know if you can tell, I don't like Wells Fargo and I don't like Chase, by the way. I really don't like Chase. But and that's because I have found Chase guidelines to take advantage of veterans, and that's one of the reasons I don't like them. I have a bank account there, but it's a legacy account I've got from years ago, and I joined an account with my father on a property that we own together. But other than that, I freaking hate them. But so I put all this together, and Wells Fargo couldn't do the loan for him. So then he takes all the work that I did. He goes back to Wells Fargo, and he goes, hey, and then this idiot at Wells Fargo goes, oh, yeah, we can do that. So, thanks for the solution to my problem. Oh, and we'll do it for, $800 cheaper. So then he comes back to me after I just gave him the keys to the kingdom and solved all of his problems for him and says, well, Wells Fargo will do it for $800 cheaper. Well, I'd like to go with you, Andrew, but, can you beat this, right? And so 11 o'clock at night here, I've got my laptop out, I'm working on more numbers for this guy. I look over, I see, this is a time where my kids are basically sleeping on the floor. And that image is seared in my brain. I mean, I had to do this, right? So I look over, I see my young son Gunnar, he's asleep on the floor, peaceful, no idea what's going on around him, no idea that mom and dad are getting divorced, no idea that dad doesn't know where the next mortgage payment's coming from. But I had to figure it out. And so, I don't know, that's a strong piece of motivation for me. But that's a piece of motivation that comes from a place of fight and anger and fear, and I'm never going back to that place again in my life. And you can use that type of experience to motivate you, and that works. It works for a time being. But you can't do that forever. You can't spend your entire life fighting. There are real physiological problems that will begin to develop in you by running your engine in the red zone the entire time. Legitimate physiological problems. Adrenal fatigue. Do some studies on basically the adrenaline and cortisol response, and more on this another time. But there are a lot of guys in the SEAL teams who, after 20 years of the teams, come out with adrenal fatigue and other hormonal problems because they're just gunning so hard all the time, not getting the proper rest, not taking care of their bodies, because they've got this will to just go and fight and drive and go and go and go. But you have got to take care of yourself for the long run. And that's where I joke around a little bit about, put the soda down and don't be a pussy, and did you work out this morning and all that. But on a serious note, look, guys, I mean, we want to be successful for in our business, for fill in the blank, for your families, most likely, for other goals and achievements you're trying to reach. But you can only do that if you take care of your body. If you abuse your body, if you become unhealthy and all of a sudden develop high cholesterol or some sort of heart failure, or just for years of not taking care of yourself. And look, and just know, just humbly, guys, I'm telling you, like, I'm saying this to myself as well. I sit at this desk, literally at this desk, 8 hours a day minimum. I mean, my work day is 12, but if I add up the time that I'm physically ass in the chair, chained to the desk, it's probably 8 hours minimum. I'm not talking 8-hour work day. I mean sitting, not moving for my body. And in the SEAL teams, I had the luxury of having a line of work that was built around working out and staying healthy because you had to perform physically, right? You don't have to do that here. There's no team workouts in the morning here, So you got to take care of your body. You got to take care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and that's not just a tagline. I mean, I'm 37, been in the business 9 years now. You guys have all been in the business more than me. You probably do more business than I do and have more experience than I do in the mortgage business. So I don't mean to, please, I mean, I'm not, this is coming from a humble place of just wanting to say to other brothers and sisters who are in the business, my observation is that this business can wear you out, chew you up, abuse you, and it's also kind of like crack. I mean, some of us are kind of addicted to it. I think just driving and continuing to do more work, which is great. Use that, but you've got to, the frontal cortex part of your brain has got to be able to say, step back and recognize where you've crossed the line. If you want to be in this for the long haul, if you want to be healthy for your kids' high school and college graduations, not showing up in a walker or whatever, just being able to make it. There are guys who I know around here in San Diego, guys who worked in my building, not in my company, who I've gotten to know. I mean, I'm just telling you, just by way of example. One guy, he's gone. He basically had a heart attack, and he's sort of around, but not really. Another guy, heart attack. Both grossly overweight, sitting there eating hamburgers and cheeseburgers, sitting at the desk all day. Good loan officers, but not in it anymore. They didn't take care of themselves. And so it's just a warning. It's just a shot across the bow to you, to me. That this business, the nature of this work is such that we sit at a desk all day. But you've got to recognize the advantage that you get from taking time out for yourself to work out. The reality is that when you work out, you have more energy. At first, you don't. At first, you're tired. But you will actually have more energy the more you work out. And it's counterintuitive if you're not currently working out systematically. But the discipline of working out breeds and feeds other disciplines. So it's not, so although I joke around and say don't be a pussy, do push-ups while you wait for me to get there, and that's just a little, that's just a little bit of kind of chiding and whatever. But seriously, you've got to work out. You've got to stay healthy. This business demands a lot. And your body's got to be able to make it through the day and in it for the long run. Unless your goal is to just punch out in 2 years, but I think you're not going to do that, So anyway, those are just some thoughts there for you guys.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned to kind of jump back to was you talked about addicted to the business a few minutes ago, and I think that's a huge piece, and we see that all the time. Folks that are just addicted to that big commission check. They've hit it before, and they just they've had a 30 grand month, and they just constantly are trying to strive to get it again and again and again, but they're missing building the foundation so they can consistently hit that or consistently make $10,000 to $15,000 per month. They hit that 30 grand one time, but then they make $2,000 the following month and $4,000 the next month, trying to hit that 30 grand again. without taking care of these things. And I mean, three of the key points that I picked up from what you said here, obviously not the size of the dog here, figure it out and focus on your mental, physical, and spiritual health. If someone is not doing those things, if they don't have a backbone and they're not willing to fight to achieve what their true goals are, if they're not willing to figure it out, they constantly have their hand out asking for help, raising their hand saying, can someone figure this out for me? And again, they're not focused on balancing themselves. They're never going to hit that number consistently. They're never going to be able to find that high, that rush, so to speak, of getting that $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 month right there.
So, a couple of things I was just saying on that, TJ, is that the money comes and goes, and people who have had it and lost it, or even people who have it, will tell you that look, it's, again, these are cliches, but they're true. Money can't buy you happiness. I mean, life costs money. Don't get me wrong. I like money. But things that are going to be around here much longer than money will be the impact that you make on the people around you, the difference you made in the life of a child, particularly your own kids, and how you take care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. I don't mean to leave those out there. The paycheck thing is, look, there's a time and there's a season to go hard. And we can recognize, when the rates drop, there's an opportunity to burst out there and grab, a bunch of loans and knock them out. You got to do that, okay? You got to see the opportunity, you got to take it. But you got to look when you've just been doing it. When it's more than just a season, then it becomes a problem, okay? So if it's a season, drop the hammer, go into the red line for a season, make a bunch of money, put that money away. I mean, people who have lost money, including myself, or been on hard times, hopefully learned their lesson. The disciplines are all around. I mean, so for me, I don't know. Are you guys in coaching programs? I've been coached by Brian Buffini systems for since I've been in the business, basically. And one of the things I love about Brian Buffini and what his sort of methodology teaches is that is about keeping these 5 areas of your life in balance, and that's your family, your financial, your business, your personal, and your spiritual. These 5 circles, and they're all interconnected. And if if things aren't going well financially, it impacts your home and family life, right? If you don't have the supportive family at home, things aren't going well at home, they certainly can impact the business. And certainly how your business operates, whether you're doing well there, affects how you're doing financially. So they're all connected. And I would just say right now we're in a season in our business where it's probably a season to continue to go hard and make a bunch of money. But I would just encourage you to put it away. Live way, way, way beneath your means right now. Because, TJ, you're talking about those $15,000, $30,000 commission months. Those are great, but do not make any mistake. This is what I saw when I first got into the business, and you guys were in it then, but I was starting at 0 and having to work my way up. But what I saw around me was people who were making a ton of money on all these stated income loans, and people began to believe that they were just that good, okay? They believed that they could earn that kind of money. So, they built their lifestyle around, I don't know, pick the number, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month that these guys were making. And so the houses, the cars, etc. But they weren't really that good. It was the market was that good, right? It was crazy times. And then when the market said no more stated income and began to go like that, I watched all those guys around me start to feel sorry for themselves, disappointed, frustrated with the market. I get it. And so, they began to kind of just sit there and wallow in their sorrow and say, well, this sucks, I can't get anything done, I can't make any money. I already wasn't making any money, so I had nowhere to go but up. I was already at the bottom. So while these guys were sort of tumbling down the mountain, and look, and this may be you. I mean, I don't, but.
I mean, it's 100% me. It was 100% me. You just described me. I joke around with some people, but it's God's honest truth. I tell people I have made as much money in a month as some people make in a year,
Right.
and I've made as much money in a year as some people made in a month. And I'll never forget. Again, it was one of those defining moments, kind of what you spoke about earlier with that customer and 15 different options and your kids sleeping on the floor. I remember having to ask my mother for grocery money to, so I could feed my kids. I had two. I said my daughter was probably 4 at the time, and my son was 6 months, was an infant, and I had to borrow money, from my mother. But the difference was, again, I had been in there. I had been in selling 228 interest onlys with 3-year prepayment penalties. I went into people with a 550 credit score and a 2 times 60 on their lateness or on the mortgage. And yeah, but so I mean, for months, I would come home and I'd tell my wife, like, God, I busted my ass. I didn't do anything, or I worked so hard today and nothing came of it. But when I look back on it, in all reality, I was sitting at my desk playing solitaire, feeling bad for myself, waiting for that phone to ring and somebody to come to me and say, hey, I want to do a mortgage right now. Right. And some of the few times that happens, the person didn't qualify because they're $100,000 upside down.
Right.
And I think you nailed it. I think there's a lot of people, probably people in this MFBA group that have been in it for a long time that were in that situation. And it's tough, man. It's tough to go from having you have a degree in psychology from some small school out in Western Maryland. All of a sudden, you're making more money than doctors and lawyers.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're right. You do start believing in it. You do start believing that you're that good. Like T.J. Barker is that good that he can justify making $50,000 in a month selling option arms, with stated income. And said, it's humbling, man. It is certainly humbling. And said, Fish, you've been in it for a while. Do you have any experiences like that?
Wow, he's muted. Yeah, looks like they all are. Fish, we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah, of course I had experiences like that. I mean, everybody did. I went to the dark side. I went to Wells Fargo. I mean, I heard they had leads. The market was horrible. The HARP program was around. I said, I got to go find one of these banks that's got a bunch of these HARP leads, or I'm just not going to make it. There's not enough purchase business out there, or I need some extra leads. So, I sold my soul for the 30 or 40 bips or whatever the heck they paid. And, we had to get rid of a car. I remember going 2 months down on the mortgage and trying to decide whether we're going to short sale or foreclose and, all that kind of stuff. It's horrible stuff. I was working during the day. My wife specifically took an afternoon job on purpose so we could share the car. That wasn't cool. It's not a fun story to tell, but at the end of the day, you get in those situations, and then you just makes you hungry. It makes you realize that you have to build better systems so that at this point, I kind of feel like I structure what I do to teach myself how not to get in that situation again. Right. Even though I'm not perfect today, I feel like if I continue to gain skills where I'm good at marketing, advertising, selling, and building a business. If the mortgage business shuts down tomorrow, I can translate those skills into some other business.
Absolutely.
And hopefully pick myself up. So I mean, I try real hard to think about what happened and how I got there, and approach it from that. And that's one thing I did. We talked about a little bit before the call. I really wanted to ask Andrew how the discipline and maybe the scheduling or what he learned from from being in the SEAL team or even from being in the mortgage business. How you translate that into managing your routines in your day. That's something I struggle with a ton. And I know you have a really good daily morning routine, at least that I can see. To me, that's something I know I need to learn and be better at.
Well, so I would tell you I recommend a book called Extreme Ownership. Two good friends of mine just wrote, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. You can grab it on Amazon. And one of Jocko's quotes is discipline equals freedom. And a lot of people think or see discipline and they think that discipline reins them in or hems them in or means that they can't do certain things, or discipline means I can't eat this food, or discipline says that I don't get to go sleep in, so some people see discipline as I don't know, just something that would hold them back, when in fact discipline actually creates freedom, because the more discipline you have, it leads to more choice ultimately. Ultimately, you have more, when you get up early, when you have the discipline to get up early and work out, you have more freedom of movement in your day. When you sleep in, you have less time in the day, and you actually have less freedom to choose what you have, you know, how you get to use the remaining hours that you have left. You get up early and get a bunch of stuff done. Now you've got the freedom to decide, you know, how you want to use the rest of your day. You know, if you're not eating healthy, you know, people say, oh, well, discipline, you know, I don't get to eat that piece of cake or something like that, you know. Well, if you're not eating healthy, then sooner or later the choice is going to be made for you when you have heart failure or hardened arteries or high cholesterol or whatever, fill in the blank, right? So now you have no freedom, you know. Now you're on an oxygen tube and a colostomy bag or whatever, you know. So, and look, there's things you can't predict in life. I mean, you could have a disease, it could be something you know, is genetic. I'm not talking about that, you know. The things that you can control, when you have the discipline, it's going to create the freedom for you. Otherwise, those choices will be made for you. I don't know. So read Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. I think the morning routine, I would just tell you that getting up early is not something that I have always been good at. It's not something I always enjoy, to be honest. When I do get up early, I like it. I love the smell of the morning. I love the extra time I have in the day. And I feel great after my workouts. But it's not easy. I don't think for a second that, oh, hey, Andrew's a morning person. I'm not a morning person. But I found the secret to getting up early is going to bed early. If you're staying up until 11:30 at night, it's kind of hard to wake up at 4:30. You can do it just by sheer willpower, but Ben Franklin said it best: early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And statements like that have stood the test of time because they're true.
Hey, so walk us through a typical day. So you wake up at 4:30.
Yeah, 4:30 to 5, somewhere in there. And, you know, there's days I don't wake up at 4:30, of course. But, you know, I'm trying to hit it as much as I can.
Alarm, or do you just
Yeah.
or you're in tune now and you wake up?
No, alarm.
All right.
I've got an alarm that's like a freaking fire drill. Okay.
Doesn't that kick like your fight or flight response up? You're ready to jump out of bed right there?
Yeah, basically. And my wife hates it, by the way. So it's like,
I'm sure.
It's not a pleasant experience, you know. I mean, she's usually pissed. There's days we sleep in different beds because of it, you know. But, you know, don't lose your marriages over this, you know. Yeah. So alarm. I mean, I got alarm on my phone, and I got a fire alarm clock like across the room. So like I've got to get up and walk over to it, you know. But the key here is that if you need help getting up, don't lay in bed. I mean, get up and get your feet on the floor. I mean, or just walk into the bathroom, you know, or something. And after a few minutes, you'll be able to you'll start waking up. But you got to get moving. If you lay there and reason with yourself in the dark while it's cold outside and you're under your sheets, you will reason yourself right back to sleep. Just don't have a conversation with yourself. Just get up and do it. Just do it. But yeah, I get up. My ideal mornings are I'm up and I'm reading a book. So reading a book right now called Mastery. It's right here. It's George Leonard. You guys heard of that book? It's easy read, but just chock full of golden nuggets about the journey. Basically, enjoy the journey. Success is along the journey and along the path, not at a destination. But I read that book, easy read. But I get up and I read and or work out first, and then I come in, I read and knock out a couple of kind of prune my inbox before my day gets crazy, and then I lay out my day. So for me, for me, I am most effective in my day when I take a white piece of paper, just like this, and I literally write out all these tasks that need to be done. First, I just write them all out, and then I take a minute and I number them. Because sometimes, I'll be honest, there's just so much stuff to do. It's like, where do you start? Do I respond to the email? Do I call that person back? Do I respond to the text? Do I do this refinance scenario? Do I take this application? I mean, so I just write them all out and then I number them 1 to whatever, could be 22, in priority. What needs to be done first? And then don't think about it. Just go to number 1 and do number 1, and then go to number 2 and do number 2, and work that way. That I am most productive when I do that. You know, we say in the SEAL teams, prioritize and execute, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's funny, like, I know prioritize and execute, but it took me a little while to learn that little silly little tool, which is just write everything down and then number it 1 to whatever. And so it's literally what I'm doing. I'm prioritizing and then executing. So,
I know Barker and I do the same thing.
Yeah. Good.
Corey, I tried to skip over you, Corey. It was your turn to tell us about all your bad times and everything.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm loving listening to this anyway. But, you know, I was in subprime, just like TJ. I'm sure you were at some point, making way too much money for the work I was doing. I was one of those guys that thought I was really good. When I'm, you know, answering the phone from maybe 9 to 1 p.m. and then going to liquid lunch every day, and then maybe coming back to the office for an hour or two to get stuff done, you know, making, you know, 10, 15 a month or whatever. So that's where I was. And then shortly before the crash, you know, like I said, a couple of us had kind of figured out, just watching some of these companies closing and some of the crazy programs, you know, 580 stated, 100%, you know, 228, just kind of, you know, this can't last. So got out of that for a little while, got back into the business, and basically started fresh, you know, towards the end of 08, believe it or not, early 09, started doing conventional stuff with a company called Gold Star. I'm sure some of you have heard of them. Starting, you know, basically never used Calyx Point in my life, never DU, never did a conventional loan, never did a purchase once in my life until, you know, 6-7 years ago. So, you know, I started like that, and it was kind of funny you guys talking about borrowing money. I remember looking under the couch cushions, the wife and I looking under the couch cushions just to eat sometimes, you know, just that little extra, maybe that little extra taco from Taco Bell or something. And that's, you know, obviously that's really humbling. And, you know, I was working 2 jobs. I do mortgages all day, and then I was running a bar down in some ghetto-ass area of Detroit at night, big sports bar. It was a second job just for cash, you know, making no money, but it was a job. So, you know, I was working, you know, 8 a.m. till 3 a.m. and not seeing the results for a long, long time. So, yeah, definitely been there. Things are obviously great now for a lot of us. I think it's where we came from. I think the discipline to never quit, which, you know, Andrew, I know you know, being in the SEAL teams is, you know, everything at first and everything as you continue through your, you know, through your military career. But, you know, that's huge for me, just not quitting and sticking to what I'm doing. And, you know, eventually you see the good times, which, you know, the last few years have been great. So I'm just hoping to, and I'm at that point now, which is what I was going to ask each of you. And I don't know, maybe TJ could start first. You know, you guys have all kind of gone off on your own already, started branches. I'm at that point where I'm at 5 to 10, you know, self-sourced deals a month, remote processing, no loan officer assistant. So I'm kind of in that, you know, that area where I want to branch off on my own. I guess my question for you guys would be, you know, how did you start with that? What did you do first? TJ, if you want to start, I mean, what did you do when you said, okay, I'm going to start a branch, or maybe not even start a branch, but I'm going to hire somebody like an LOA or somebody to work with? How did you start with that, and, you know, what did you do to make that happen for you?
Well, so for me, it's and again, I'm going to be fairly quick because we've been here for almost an hour, so you guys have been awesome. I appreciate everyone sharing this time. I started my first branch in 2012, and it was a complete and total clusterfuck. So everything I had managed to work up and save from the time the crash happened to the time we started getting back on our feet. Actually, I want to say 2011. This was we put into this branch to get it going, and we weren't allowed to lock loans until we had approval at that time. We had over $100,000 in billable fee on our board. We left on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We came back on that Monday, and rates had gone up by, I want to say, a half, not to the price, but the actual rate had gone up by a quarter or a half or something like that, and just wiped out our board. So that was 3 months worth of work, because our turn times at the time were like 21 days for the initial approval at that point. So that sucked. And we got absorbed by a bigger branch of the same company, and we missed out on the refinance boom by 7 or 8 months. The guys who took us over were making $2 to $3 million a year after that. So the big lesson I learned at that point was not to branch out until you were truly ready. I was smart enough, but I hadn't earned the right to do it at that point. I didn't have the finances to do it. I didn't have the consistent business to do it. I was completely reliant upon refinances and interest rates at that point. So the position I'm in now, so it's not my branch, but it's I'm the sales manager for this team here. But I mean, honestly, I had earned it. I had earned for years. I put the time in, the consistent business, consistent success, learning from the consistent failures that always happen in this business before I had this opportunity where I'm in charge of managing the efforts of others and helping them build that success right there. So for me, I think it's truly earning the right to do that, and knowing that you have the business, you have the discipline, and frankly, you have the finances to be able to move forward. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Thank you.
Yep. What about you, Fish?
I'm just one of the man. I just keep trying, and I keep doing things, and I get to the point where I have so many spheres of influence and so many connections and so many people that I can potentially get business from that I know the business is coming. I know I don't necessarily have to rely on leads, even though we talk about leads and lead funnels and all that kind of stuff. I can turn a lot of that stuff down and not worry about it, and literally just hop on my phone and text and email and message, and I can make connections. So I think for me, constantly focusing on bringing in the business is a very important step on deciding whether you're ready to grow and build. Because if you spend all your time analyzing, but you don't actually focus on where the business is going to come from, then you can have the perfect operation, but you don't have any loans to plug into that operation, and you don't know how to quickly bring them in. Then you're just you're stuck in the mud. You got a team that's great and can maybe close fast, and you can parlay that into business quickly, but you have to have those skills. So I've spent so much time honing the skills where, like I was telling you, I feel I can pull myself out of the mortgage business and succeed in another business fairly quickly, because I know how to bring in business. So once I was confident in my ability to bring in business, that's when I decided, okay, well, now I need to start figuring out how I'm going to build and run a team. And I guess maybe some people would think that's backwards, but to me, that's the only way I would do it, and I would do it the same way again, because I feel like there's a lot of folks in the group. There's coaches I can hire. There's systems I can study to figure out how to build a team and how to get a loan closed. But there's not a lot of people in America that can teach you how to get the phone to ring with ideal clients. And I know I work with at least one of them, but ultimately, to me, that was very important to get to the point where I knew I was just going to be a rainmaker, and I was going to take imperfect action. I'm going to find a way to bring in business and essentially lead an office, lead my team or whatever in the production in this marketing leader.
Fish, your internet's taking a dump on you here. So, well, real quick, let's wrap this up, guys, because again, it's been about an hour here. Andrew, anything you want to close with? You want to add to what you've done here? I mean, you shared with us a bunch of stuff as far as from scheduling your day to getting up in there early, having the fire alarm going off to get you out of bed and getting your feet on there. Sharing some of your points and things that you learned as a member. Or I don't even think about. To me, the story isn't even necessarily about you being a Navy SEAL. It's you having that desire to be the Navy SEAL and that being your dream and you making it happen, and then transitioning into the mortgage business and again figuring out ways to make it happen. I think that's a big piece of what we're doing here, or what the story is. Anything you want to wrap up with, share with everybody here?
Yeah, I'd wrap up with two quick thoughts. First, something Fisher said earlier, which I agree with 100%, and it's just that, sort of regardless of what happens in the business, I mean, it sounds like we along with a lot of other people, have been through hard times to get to where we are, and so those are lessons, and don't forget those. But Fisher said, hey, no matter what happens, the skills that he's developed, he could go into another business, another industry, and he could be successful. And I think that's, first of all, I believe that to be true of him. And second of all, I think it also is a great example that speaks to a mindset that says, I've developed a certain competency, skill set, and ability that doesn't matter. Put me anywhere. I'm going to get it done. That's what I heard when Fisher said that, and that was awesome. Regardless of what happens, I mean, who knows how long this ride is going to be in the mortgage industry, but work on yourself. Jim Rohn said, go make $1 million, not for what you'll make, but for what it will make of you. The person you have to become in the process of becoming a millionaire changes you, because who you were before you made $1 million was not a person who made $1 million. You were not of that mindset, of that skill set, of that ability. Who you have to become to make $1 million is more valuable than the $1 million. Once you make $1 million, you know how to do that. Like Fisher said, no matter what happens, you could go into another line of work and you could become successful in that industry. I would just wrap up and say that for me, I mean, look, I've had guys, and I hope you guys aren't doing this, but I mean, I have guys that look at me and they're like, oh, you're a Navy SEAL, you can do all of these things, and I'm here to tell you that, I mean, I'm just a guy who's out there slugging away, struggling, who has shortcomings, who has emotions, who has highs and who has lows, just like you do. When we finish up here, I've got an inbox of 87 unread freaking emails. I got realtors and borrowers I got to call back, and loans I got to work on, and conditions. Yeah, I'm doing it too. I don't have some magic situation or some magic carpet or some secret sauce or whatever. When we hang up, I mean, I'm gonna get a cup of coffee. I haven't had a cup yet this morning. I'm gonna get a cup of coffee, and I'm gonna roll my sleeves up and I'm gonna get into it. And I mean, I take, I'm inspired by you guys. I take solace knowing that you guys are out there doing the same things that I'm doing. And so just when we finish this up, we're all gonna turn back to our pile of work. Just know that I'm turning back to a pile of work and challenges, and kids, and I got a vacation coming up, and managing that, and my wife, and are we getting along? Is she happy? I mean, I'm going through all the same challenges, and just know that. I think that there's something very powerful in knowing that when you connect with a few other people who are going through the similar things, who are out there working. I know you guys aren't going to give up. I know you guys are going to keep working, and that inspires me. When we hang up here, I'm going to go back to work here. I'm going to get after it today, man. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to get after it, because I'm not some schmuck loan officer at Wells Fargo. I'm way frickin' better than that, and so are you. And we're the best, and we're the leaders of this industry. We are. I'm going back to work here. When we turn away from these screens, and you look back to your pile of problems and challenges, I'm turning back to a pile of problems and challenges. So just know I'm doing it, and I know you're doing it, and we'll all get after it together. Because I'm telling you, we are the leaders of this industry. The others can fall by the wayside. We will drive forward, and we will continue to represent our clients, to kick ass for them, to do a great job for those referral partners who send us business, and to provide for our families and for our communities. That's it. That's all I've got.
That's awesome. And nice on that note, we're going to end this because we can't end it any better than that. Everybody, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, fellas.
See you guys.